Chapter 2876. Tang Ying saved Gong Jinglin. When Gong Jinglin was carried into the cave, he subconsciously relaxed his body and fainted. Since he could not avoid the dream that night despite all his efforts, he might as well accept reality and take things one step at a time. At least, the endings in both dreams were not wrong. He was not resigned to his fate. He just felt that the young lady in the village called Tang Ying was not bad. She was as pure as she was in his dreams. He was used to fighting and scheming. Other than his trusted subordinates, this was the first time he could peacefully faint beside someone without fear of being schemed against. Even if there were a lot of troublesome things in his dreams, it was not as if he could not solve them. If he could not avoid them, he could secretly solve them behind his back. As for this young lady who was destined to be with him, since he had met her, he would not avoid her. Tang Ying was thinking the same thing as Gong Jinglin. She was thinking the same thing. Since she was still here, she could not bear to leave Gong Jinglin here when she met him. Since they had already met, she did not avoid him like how she avoided snakes and scorpions. Speaking of which, in both dreams, Gong Jinglin was the only person who was willing to protect her behind his back. Even if he brought her to the capital, given her status, there would be many obstacles for her to be with him. No matter what threats he encountered, he would never compromise for his own status. Instead, he wanted to protect her well and not let anyone hurt her. He wanted to face the pressure from the outside world himself. Although she did not have a high status, she still had good medical skills. She could be of some help to him. After thinking it through, Tang Ying did not want to avoid him anymore. Let nature take its course. If she still liked Gong Jinglin would also like her. In this strange world, it was not bad to have someone to lean on. Tanghua, who was far away in the capital, had already negotiated with the bosses of several big restaurants regarding her chickens and eggs. In order to promote her chickens and eggs, she even personally cooked and showed them to them. How should these chickens and eggs be cooked to taste good? She did not do much with the eggs. She had them boil them in rice. Eggs boiled in rice water tasted the best. She also told the owner of the restaurant that the eggs could not be cooked for too long or too short. If it was cooked for too long, the eggs would not be tender. If it was cooked for too short a time, the eggs would not be cooked. Some people would not be able to stand the sweet eggs. If there were people with special requirements, the cooking time could be shortened. In order to promote her eggs, she went all out. She even told the other party about the heat and time. The restaurant owner also listened attentively. Not only did he listen attentively, but after eating the eggs cooked by Tanghua, he also called the chef of the restaurant to listen and learn. Tanghua didn't feel that she had suffered a loss by telling them these little secrets. Anyway, she could earn back what she had lost from them in the future. This small egg is really different after Mr. Tang's treatment. The boss of a restaurant couldn't hold back and ate 3 eggs in one go. If it weren't for the fact that he knew he couldn't stand it anymore, he would have eaten a few more. I heard from Boss Tang that your chickens are raised in the mountains and you drive them out for a walk every day? Tanghua nodded. Not only do I walk them, but I also trim and comb their feathers regularly. I strive to make every chicken not only delicious, but also beautiful. Chapter 2877. Then, Tanghua told more about the situation of the chicken farm. The restaurant owner was amazed. Later, Tanghua asked Shi Xingshan to bring up the 2 chickens. They were kept in a very beautiful cage. When the cloth was untied, the restaurant owner's eyes lit up when he saw the shiny and soft feathers of the 2 chickens. Many of the chickens raised by farmers, when they were sent to the restaurant, their claws were tied with grass and placed into baskets casually. There was even a lot of chicken feces on the feathers. In short, they looked a little dirty. In the past, they didn't think much of it. After all, the feathers of the chickens would be plucked and cleaned. What they needed was not feathers, but chicken. Now, when he saw the 2 chickens taken out by Tanghua, the restaurant owner dispelled his previous thoughts. He always felt that the dishes in his restaurant were missing something. Even the delicacies from some places made him feel that they were not good enough. In other words, he wanted to sell some expensive dishes because the raw materials were not good enough. In addition, the dishes were not new enough, so he couldn't make a lot of money. The high officials and nobles didn't care about that little money at all. Some restaurants in the capital often introduced some new things. It was very attractive to those high officials and nobles. Their restaurants were the same, but the new things always lacked stamina. After a while, they would not be fresh anymore. The chickens provided by Tangua were not only for eating, but also for those high officials and nobles to admire. While admiring, he could also tell the high officials and nobles the story of the Tang family's chicken farm. He could tell them how the lives of these chickens were raised in such a delicate way. With such delicate chickens, the high officials and nobles who did not lack money would think that they would be promoted to a higher level after eating a bite. What kind of delicacies could be compared with the chickens raised in such a delicate way? The restaurant owner's mind was working quickly, but of course, he still kept his composure on the surface. He just said, "The appearance of Boss Tang's chickens is really beautiful. I have to say that the color of the feathers of these two chickens is glossy. At first glance, I can tell that they are raised well. But these chickens are for eating after all. If it's just for looking good, it's putting the cart before the horse." In fact, he just wanted to let Tangua show off her skills again and see if he could get some secrets from her. "If Boss Su is willing to order 100 chickens from my family, I can give you a recipe on how to cook meat. This recipe will only be provided to Boss Su's restaurant. It's unique." Hearing this, Boss Su was a little tempted. "Boss Tang, you really know how to do business. Your chicken isn't cheap, is it? I don't know how much it would cost to order 100 of them. It's a little expensive, but my chicken is worth the price." "I won't listen to Mr. Tang's one-sided story," Boss Su said. He really underestimated this young lady. He didn't expect her to be so calm. Even at this time, she wasn't anxious at all. In fact, he was a little anxious. As long as what Tangua said about raising chickens was true, the taste of the chicken should not be too bad. The story of the Tang family's chicken farm was enough to attract many high officials and nobles. "If Boss Su is free, why don't you come to my Tang chicken farm the day after tomorrow? When the time comes, we will entertain you with the most delicious chicken." Mr. Su understood what he meant. "Us? So, Boss Tang has invited others?" "Boss Su, to be honest, I have invited all the big restaurants in the capital." Boss Su was speechless. Chapter 2878. I have a lot of methods on how to cook meat. If Boss Su is interested, you can come to the chicken banquet the day after tomorrow. This time, Boss Su didn't want to refuse. He had heard of a fish banquet, but he hadn't heard of a chicken banquet. He really wanted to see what she could make chicken. For this, Boss Su agreed. Boss Su was actually the last restaurant owner that Tangua met. After the discussion, the sky was almost dark, so they returned to the remote house in the city. At the door of the house, she could faintly see a person standing there. She got off the carriage and walked over. Who else could it be but Shang Yin? "System, how much does my little wife want to wait for her husband to come back?" He knew that this time, that guy took the script upside down. "Little fool, why are you standing at the door? There are so many mosquitoes outside. Aren't you afraid of being bitten?" Tangua walked in front of Shang Yin and heard the buzzing of mosquitoes. She also saw Shang Yin holding hands and leading her in. Under the candlelight, she saw that his hands were bitten several times. Sure, Xingshan didn't know what to say. His young master was a little foolish, but he was better than those smart people when it came to wooing girls. Look, just standing at the door and being bitten by mosquitoes for a while attracted all the attention of the boss. If he knew this little fool when he was young and learned a thing or two, he might have a house full of children and grandchildren. "Wife, let's eat." Tangua applied some medicinal wine for Shang Yin. When she heard his words, she couldn't help but pat his head. "Next time, you have to wait at the door. Ask someone to move a chair outside and apply some medicinal wine on your hands. Also, ask someone to burn some mugwort at the door. The mosquitoes won't dare to bite you then." After saying this, she remembered that Shang Yin's brain wasn't very bright. He probably didn't know how to order people around. Moreover, when he was waiting outside, the servants in the house didn't move at all. It was obvious that they were useless. "Housekeeper, hire 2 more people tomorrow. For the 2 at home, give them money and let them go." Sure, Xingshan had already thought of this and planned to mention it to Tangua later. It should be because the boss was busy with the chicken farm and neglected the situation in the house. When they went to the chicken farm, the boss could still bring the young master along. But when they went to the restaurant to discuss business, the boss didn't bring him along. In the future, when we go out to discuss things, take the little fool with us. Housekeeper, you can choose 2 people, 1 old maid and 1 young manservant. Let the old maidservants take care of the courtyard, and the manservant will follow us out to take care of the little fool. System. He wants to be a little idiot too. Yes, boss. Shi Xingshan agreed and planned to ask someone to prepare the meal. At present, there was only an old woman and a manservant in the house. He went to the kitchen and came back with an ugly expression. Boss, old Madam Chin didn't cook. There doesn't seem to be any leftovers in the kitchen. I guess she didn't cook at noon either. Tangua's eyes turned cold. She looked back at Sheng Yin and pinched his face. Little fool, are you hungry? Being stared at so seriously by Tangua, Sheng Yin quickly nodded. I'm hungry. Why didn't you tell me that you were hungry? Sheng Yin didn't say anything, and Tangua didn't blame him. The old maidservants and manservants in the house probably knew that Sheng Yin wouldn't take the initiative to say these things, so they were lazy and didn't cook lunch for him. She didn't treat them badly. It was just that she was a little busy these days. She was running around, and she took Sheng Yin with her because she was afraid that he would follow her. Chapter 2879. She had already decided to bring him along wherever she went in the future. Who asked him to be such a fool? I'll make you something delicious later. System. He also wants to eat and be pampered by the host. He can even become a fool. Housekeeper, tell them to scram immediately. Little fool, do you like boiled eggs or egg custard? Shi Xingshan's heart trembled. He saw Tangua smiling while talking to Sheng Yin. When she told the two to scram, her tone was so cold. He couldn't help but twitch his mouth. He didn't know how the boss did it. The first half of the sentence was so cold, but the second half was so warm. Shi Xingshan didn't think too much about it. He turned around to deal with the 2 lazy servants who didn't take care of his young master. The 2 of them shouted that they wanted to see Tangua and ask for their wages. They were thrown out by Shi Xingshan. Pfft, you still want your wages? You took advantage of the boss' absence and neglected your wages. It's already good that the boss didn't ask me to beat you. Hurry up and scram. Ask the boss to come out. If he sees you, he might find you asking for a beating. Back then, he had seen these 2 people as honest people. Since they had fled to the capital, he had felt compassion for them and had asked the master to take them in. He had asked them to take care of the house, provide them with shelter, food, and wages. They had let them down like this. Thinking of this, Shi Xingshan felt that he wasn't qualified as a housekeeper. Seeing that the 2 of them still wanted to cause trouble, he walked out and stomped his foot. He stomped a small hole in the ground right at the entrance, scaring the 2 of them. They quickly ran away. This was his first mistake as a housekeeper. He must learn from it in the future. He couldn't recruit some shady people just because he sympathized with them. This time, he was lazy and didn't cook for his young master. If some bad people sneaked in next time and caused bigger consequences, it would be his fault. He would really let down the boss's trust. Shi Xingshan turned around and found Tangua in the kitchen, who was making egg custard for Sheng Yin. Sheng Yin was helping Tangua with the fire. His young master was an idiot, but whenever he met his master, he would always do something incredible without anyone teaching him. System. You old man, of course you don't understand. This guy has always been cheating. Boss, it won't happen again. Tangua looked up and nodded. It's good that you've learned your lesson, but this time, you've made the little fool suffer, so your salary for this month is gone. Shi Xingshan hurriedly nodded his head, indicating that he should do so. He still felt that the boss's punishment was too light. Looking at Sheng Yin staring at the egg soup in the pot, he felt very guilty. At Sheng Yin's request, Tangua shared the egg soup with him. Butler, you can cook your own noodles or boiled eggs. Shi Xingshan replied, Don't worry, boss. I will take good care of myself. Wasn't it just a matter of cooking for a mature butler? It wasn't a problem for him. He didn't dare to ask the boss for food. The only person who could make the boss cook food, other than the restaurant that promoted the chicken, was the young master. Shi Xingshan cooked egg noodles to eat. It was delicious, but the smell of egg soup always came from the tip of his nose, making him almost cry. As the saying goes, fortune favors fools. Shi Xingshan, who had learned his lesson, went to pick reliable people the next day. After picking and choosing, he felt that hiring servants and maids wasn't reliable. The most reliable ones were those who were willing to sign a contract to sell themselves. Chapter 2880. Shi Xingshan finally understood why no one wanted him when he fled to the new county, even though he had some knowledge. Small families couldn't afford to hire him. One more person meant one more mouthful of food, which was also a kind of burden. Unless he signed a contract to sell himself to a wealthy family, they wouldn't trust him. For example, the old woman and the servant who were driven away by him yesterday. He also carefully inquired about it. In those large families, even the servant girls who did rough work would sign a contract to sell themselves. Generally, there were two kinds of contracts. One was a living contract, which could be redeemed in the future. The other was a death contract. Once signed, one would be regarded as a servant of the family. But those who could afford to eat were not willing to sign a contract to sell themselves. There were also some who would sell their daughters to large families as servant girls for their sons. Those who were kind would sign a living contract, while those who were cruel would sign a death contract. In the end, Shi Xingshan went out of the city to see those who fled the city due to the famine. There were many people who had the same purpose as him. They were all looking for people. After observation, he chose a good-looking old woman and a young man. They were mother and son, because many people didn't want an old woman, but they were unwilling to be separated. Large families were not doing charity. It was impossible for them to bring back an old woman just because they wanted a young man. Shi Xingshan happened to be short of an old woman. He asked if they were willing to sign a death contract. Since they were willing, he brought them back. That afternoon, Tanghua took Sheng Yin to the chicken farm. There were farmers at the foot of the mountain. Many farmers' women were working in her chicken farm. Because she wanted to entertain the restaurant owners, she had asked these farmers to lend her place. She wouldn't let them use it for free. They had already washed the tables, chairs, stools, pots, bowls, ladles, and basins and prepared them. That day, Tanghua asked people to catch chickens. Because it was summer, she didn't dare to kill them in advance. She would ask people to kill the chickens the next morning. By the time those restaurant owners came over, they would have already prepared everything. She was definitely the one who was cooking. The farmers helped her clean up the chickens, and then she was busy in the kitchen alone. No, there was also a little fool, Sheng Yin, who was helping her with the fire. Little fool, your fire is pretty good. Shi Xingshan, who was standing at the door, was speechless when he heard this. Beside him stood a young man. It was the manservant that he had bought from outside the city yesterday. He was honest and had a strong build. After his observation, this young man was reliable. Just like now, when he was asked to stand guard at the door, the young man stared outside with a determined gaze. His gaze didn't even shift, and he wasn't curious about anything on the other side. When it was close to noon, the owners of the restaurants finally arrived. The housekeeper invited them in from outside. From afar, Boss Su and the others could smell the aroma of meat, which made them drool. When all the chicken dishes were served and Tanghua introduced them one by one, everyone was very serious. Every time they ate a dish made of chicken, their eyes lit up. She couldn't wait to ask Tanghua to give them the recipe for the chicken. To be honest, they had never eaten such delicious chicken in their entire lives, not to mention the fact that they owned restaurants. Especially the chicken soup, it was simply the best in the world. If a boss is willing to order 100 chickens today, not only will I give you a unique chicken recipe, but I will also give you a recipe for the soup for free. Of course, this recipe is not unique. However, only those who order chickens today will give it to you. Tanghua revealed a meaningful smile. If one of you is willing to share it with the other bosses for free, as long as one of you orders 100 chickens, the recipe for the chicken soup can also be shared. Boss Su and the others looked at each other. Share? Forget it. Who would be willing to share? The recipe for the chicken soup was not for free. There was no way to take advantage of it. The only way to give the chicken soup is to order chickens today. In fact, at this time, there was no doubt about everything. While everyone was still thinking, Tanghua said, "Those who order first can choose the chicken recipe first. The recipe is unique. You know that. If it is chosen, it will be gone." Boss Su and the others cursed secretly. Profiteer. Chapter 2881. Today, Tanghua had prepared more than 20 different types of chicken for the banquet. Each of them had a different cooking method and taste. It could be said that they could become a restaurant specialty dish, especially since the Tang family's method of raising chickens. If word of it got out, the rich and powerful would definitely book their VIP rooms in advance. With the recipe of the chicken, they would have more room to operate. They could even use different types of chicken to make different dishes. Only the rich and powerful would be able to eat the best dishes. Whether it was talking about it or treating them, it would be very dignified. They might even ask someone to do something for them and treat them to a meal. They had already eaten the chicken banquet. It was a delicacy. If they spread the news, everyone's recipes would be different. They wouldn't have to worry about stealing each other's business. When the time came, they could even work together to create some news. That would be a win-win situation. However, the price that Tanghua offered was really high. They wondered if they could lower the price. However, Tanghua wouldn't lower a single cent. She even said that she had already given them a unique recipe. If they were to lower the price, her chickens would be wasted. Raising these chickens had consumed a lot of her energy and financial resources. Boss Su and the others also understood this, but they still wanted to observe the place where the chickens lived. After eating, they could go for a walk to digest the food. Tanghua agreed and brought Boss Su and the others to the mountain to see the chickens. The mountain that she had rented with money was surrounded by fences. She even hired people and raised dogs to watch the chickens. She also set up traps around the area. She wasn't afraid that someone would come and steal from them. When Boss Su and the others saw the condition of the chickens with their own eyes, they didn't hesitate to order 100 chickens. Boss Su was the first to speak. He had already taken a fancy to one of the chicken dishes. When he opened his mouth and ordered, the other bosses were a little annoyed. Why didn't they hurry up? Then, they started to choose the chickens. The chickens raised by the Tang family's chicken farm were all beautiful and delicious. The group of restaurant owners stood outside and looked at the chickens that were catching insects to eat. They stretched out their fingers and pointed at them. Whenever they pointed to a chicken, Tanghua would ask someone to mark it. When they needed it, she would send someone to deliver fresh chickens to them. From here to the city, it would only take an hour at the fastest. If it wasn't too long, they could still send people to pick it up. Using this kind of style might be able to attract those delicious mouths. That day, the bosses asked their men to bring back 10 chickens, and the rest were raised at Tanghua's place. Chapter 2882. She could guarantee that these restaurants would order her chickens in the future. So, she decided to keep the eggs for the time being to hatch chicks. Once she turned around and hatched chicks, she would be able to sell her eggs without any worries. Tanghua held her chin. She had to go back and think about it. When the time came, she would give them all the recipes to make steamed egg custard based on the number of orders they signed. She could think of many recipes to make steamed egg custard in an instant. Boss, congratulations. The chicken farm is finally on the right track, Sir Shanshan said happily. These days, his boss had been throwing money into the farm like crazy. He was scared out of his wits just by looking at it. If they couldn't recoup their investment, it would be a big loss. It's still far from my goal, Tanghua said with a smile. Since she had decided to run a chicken farm, she had to do it to the best of her ability. She wanted to be the best chicken farmer in this dynasty. Her chickens and dogs would be the best. Even the officials and nobles would think that her chickens were a luxury food. When people talked about the Tang family's chickens, they would look at her with envy. Anyone who could taste the Tang family's chickens would be envied. Those who ate the Tang family's chickens would be praised as rich people. At that time, no matter if they were rich or small, they would be proud to eat the Tang family's chickens. In fact, some people's wish was to eat a bite of Tangkor's chicken. Her chickens were not for sale. They could only order at least 100 chickens. After setting the threshold, the quality of the chickens increased. When Sir Shanshan heard Tanghua's words, he was stunned. How could it be like this? His boss was really good at doing business. He couldn't help but think of the day when his boss left Family Tang Village. He wondered if that family would regret it when they found out about his boss's achievements in the future. He just couldn't understand how that family could bear to spoil such a good girl like his boss. If they hadn't gone overboard, his boss wouldn't have come up with such a method to sever ties with them. 150 taels. Everyone in the village knew that this was how much the Family Tang family had sold their daughter. If they were really going to marry off their daughter, would they not have any etiquette on the day of the wedding and just let people carry her away in a small sedan chair? Butler, let's go back. You have to sort out the accounts of all the bosses. Don't worry, boss. Shi Xingshan was still very cautious when it came to these matters. The fact that the boss had entrusted such an important task to him meant that he trusted him. Tang Guo went into the house and found Shang Yin playing alone. She walked over and touched his head. Little fool, let's go home. She saw that Shang Yin had been sitting obediently on the stool the whole time. He had almost finished all the chicken snacks she had made for him on the table. From the looks of it, he really did listen to her and didn't go out. Wife, can we go home now? You can go home now. Tang Guo took out a handkerchief and threw it to him. Wipe your mouth. The corners of your mouth are oily. What Tang Guo didn't expect was that Shang Yin didn't wipe it himself. Instead, he stuffed the handkerchief into her palm and moved closer to her, indicating that he wanted her to help. When Tang Guo saw this, she was a little amused. Where did you learn this from? Tang Guo wiped the corners of Shang Yin's mouth. You're a little fool. How did you learn this so quickly? System. Because I used a cheat. Shang Yin didn't say anything. He only looked at Tang Guo with a pair of clear eyes. He was as innocent as he could be. Even their claws were not like the ugly scars of ordinary chickens that had been bitten by mosquitoes and insects. Such a chicken was pleasing to the eye just by looking at it. Since it was so clean, he could eat it without worry. Everyone in the capital knew that chicken could be sold this way. Because of this, everyone in the capital knew about Tang family's chickens. Mr. Su and the others came back to their senses and patted their heads speechlessly. This Mr. Tang is too calculative. In the end, the biggest winner is still her. Yeah, he's already so crafty at such a young age. I wonder which family raised him. From Tang Guo's temperament, they all thought that she was a woman raised by some large merchant family. Chapter 2884. With the efforts of the various restaurants, Tang family's chicken became extremely popular. Although the various restaurants knew that Tang Guo had set them up, they had no choice but to fall into her trap. For example, many nobles had come to book private rooms in advance after tasting their new dish. It was obvious that they had ordered that dish. Although it was a little expensive, the number of people who ordered the dishes did not decrease. Instead, it increased. They felt that their previous efforts were worth it. There were also some people who could not order the dishes. Even if they broke their legs, there was nothing they could do. Now, the VIP rooms had been booked until a month later. In order to make something precious, the people in the various restaurants were all smart and did not intend to increase the number of people. If there were really nobles who they could not afford to offend, the restaurants would prepare one or two of the most prestigious private rooms. They were not afraid that they would not be able to handle it. Boss, someone from the Li family has come to order chicken. I heard that Lord Li loves to eat chicken. He knew that he could order chicken from us because he could not get in line at the restaurant. So, he sent someone over. Although it was not as delicious as the ones made in the restaurants, the taste of Tang family's chicken was definitely different. Lord Li had specially asked someone to inquire about it and ordered 100 chickens without hesitation. This level of generosity was truly not something that an ordinary person could do. 100 chickens were not cheap. Okay, ask Lord Li if he likes to eat egg custard. If he likes it, we can give him a recipe for egg custard. Tang Guo recalled Lord Li in her mind and confirmed with Shi Xingshan whether it was the Lord Li in her mind. In the end, it was indeed the first-rank official in the imperial court. It was mentioned in the plot that he loved to eat chicken. It was easier to make a few friends in the capital. She had a lot of recipes for egg custard, so she would give it to him. Because she had given the recipes to the restaurant, it would be a conflict if she gave another recipe. The owners of the restaurant were big business partners. It was good enough that she gave them the recipe for egg custard. Lord Li's servant only took 2 chickens back and raised the rest at Tang Guo's place. When she needed them, she would come back to get them. Since Lord Li could eat 1 chicken in 1 or 2 days, he could use up 100 chickens in about half a year. As time passed, more and more nobles came to order chickens. When Tang Guo saw that the farmers were too busy, she understood that the orders could not be released anymore. In the end, She even decided how many chickens she would sell in half a year. She also said that this was due to the conditions of raising chickens. In order to raise chickens that tasted better, she couldn't keep hatching chickens just because there were many people who wanted to buy chickens. That would be disrespectful to the customers who trusted her. Therefore, no matter whether they had ordered or not, they did not make things difficult for her. That's right. If it could be bought so easily, would this chicken still be rare? For this reason, the restaurant had no choice but to limit their sales. Although it was a little troublesome and the sales seemed to be decreasing, more and more people were coming to the restaurant to eat. Since they couldn't eat the chickens raised by the Tang family, they could eat ordinary chickens to satisfy their cravings. Tangwa's chicken farm was thriving. When many people couldn't find a way to order chickens, she launched Tang's eggs. After the launch, orders came in an endless stream. If he ordered eggs, it would start at 100. Eggs were much cheaper than chickens, and some small families could afford to eat them. No matter what, these were eggs laid by Tang's chickens. They would definitely taste better than those outside. Furthermore, if you want to buy fresh eggs, you have to make a reservation in advance. You can't wait for the eggs to spoil. My lord, she's talking nonsense. I bought Tang's eggs. She's just trying to earn money. She's bullying us commoners and earning our money. In fact, even if a normal person bought a bad one, they wouldn't think of suing someone. But if there was someone behind this woman, then it was very normal. Silence. Tangwa, do you have any evidence to prove that Wang Shi didn't buy the eggs from you? After speaking, the interrogator didn't wait for the two women to speak and asked again. Wang Shi, do you have any evidence to prove that you bought the spoiled eggs from Tang family? Wang Shi was stunned for a moment before she quickly said, in any case, I bought the eggs from Tang family. They're not fake. Tang family's chicken farm is a scammer. They only sell spoiled eggs. Your Excellency, you need to get justice for me. Chapter 2886. The official turned to look at Tangwa. Tangwa, what about you? I have evidence to prove that the eggs in Wang Shi's hands were not bought from Tang Core. Tangwa glanced at Wang Shi. Why didn't these troublemakers find out how Tang Core sold their eggs? Speak. Actually, the official in charge of the trial already knew that Wang Shi was lying from the start. When he received this case, he received a piece of news before the trial. The news was given to him by a first-rank official, Lord Li, who happened to be his teacher. He did not say much, and simply told him to investigate this matter thoroughly. He also told him to be fair and honest, and not let those filthy things slander those businessmen who ran their chicken farms seriously. At this point, he understood what Lord Li meant. He heard that Lord Li ordered 100 chickens and 500 eggs from Tang Core in one go. Every time he wanted to eat them, he would secretly send someone to fetch fresh eggs. It was said that Tang Core had always sold their chickens and eggs in this way. Tang Core's chickens and eggs were not even enough for these rich people and restaurants. How could they sell them to an ordinary woman? My lord, our Tang clan's chicken farm, regardless of whether we sell chickens or eggs, we sell at least 100. When we sell them, we need to sign a contract with both parties. If a customer brings 100 chickens back at once, it is inevitable that they will not take good care of them. After a long time, the meat will not taste as good. As for how much they need, the customer can send someone to fetch them a day or two in advance. As for eggs, it is still fine for the restaurant. After all, there are many customers who come to eat every day. Bringing 100 eggs back at once will not affect the quality of the food. But, for the average customer, no matter how big their family is, it is impossible for them to eat 100 eggs at once. There is a time limit to the shelf life of an egg. Once the shelf life is over, the egg will not be fresh and will not taste good. So, when it is time to eat, the customer will come back a day or two in advance to get fresh eggs. This way, the eggs will taste the best. As for the eggs in our chicken farm that are over the shelf life, we will use them to make salted eggs, pickled eggs, and preserved eggs. These 3 types of eggs have a long shelf life and taste good. In the near future, Tang Core will be launching these products to the public. The official sitting in the courtroom was speechless. Was this little girl here to fight a lawsuit or to promote her new products? But he was still interested in Tang Core's salted eggs, pickled eggs, and preserved eggs. The taste should be pretty good. Last time at his teacher's place, he was fortunate enough to eat 2 mouthfuls of chicken and 10,000 egg soup. It was indeed delicious. He was looking forward to it. My lord, as long as someone buys chicken or eggs from our Tang family, both parties will have a contract, and the contract will clearly state what they are buying at the time of purchase. Every time a customer comes to pick up new goods, a new mark will be made on the contract between both parties. Then did you bring all these contracts? I've brought it here. Please take a look, my lord. Tanghua asked Shi Xingshan to send a wooden box up. Inside the box was a list of all the orders. Every order was recorded. It was impossible to slander her. She had already expected that there would be such people. Sir, if you don't believe me, I can ask these guests to testify. At this moment, Shi Xingshan happened to flip to his teacher, Lord Li's contract. When he saw the number, he almost couldn't hold it in. Although he was comforted, Shang Yin did not let go of her. It was as if he could only feel at ease by holding on to her. Tanghua did not resist and sat in the carriage with him. Shi Xingshan smiled and asked the manservant to drive the carriage. Butler, did you remember all the people who came to testify for me earlier? Boss, I've already noted it down. After staying by Tanghua's side for so long, what could Shi Xingshan figure out? In 2 days, when they come to pick up the goods, each family will be given 30 eggs. Say that it's a gift to the old customers. Shi Xingshan agreed and kept this matter in mind. Lord Li will give us 60 eggs. Tanghua said. She had already figured out the relationships of many officials in the court, especially those who appeared in the plot. Chapter 2888. Lord Chun, who was investigating the case today, was Lord Li's student. Lord Chun was so friendly and seemed to trust her. She didn't believe that Lord Li didn't give her a heads up. After this incident, the troublemakers disappeared. Everyone knew that it wasn't easy to bring down Tang Core. So many people came to testify, but not only did they fail, they also got themselves into trouble. After earning some money, Tanghua moved to a bigger house. A while ago, the system told her that the male lead, Gong Jinglin, had returned. The reason why he didn't return immediately was because he had secretly gone to settle some matters after he recovered from his injuries. This time, he came back with evidence. He wanted to catch them off guard and deal them a heavy blow. The reason why he didn't bring Tang Ying back was because he didn't think he could protect her well in his current state. He wanted to wait until it was a little safer around her and the hidden enemies were defeated. Only then would he have the confidence to protect her. Ever since he faced reality and met Tang Ying, he realized that if he tried to avoid what happened in the plot again, it wouldn't be as unavoidable as before. After many tests, he even suspected that the reason he couldn't avoid what happened before was because he didn't meet Tang Ying. Tang Ying was the woman he was destined to be with. That was why he tried so hard to let them meet. Now, because of the 2 dreams, he knew a lot of things in advance. As long as he planned well, things would go a lot smoother. Family Tang's family could only stay like this for now. After he settled the matters in Beijing, if they dared to bully Tang Ying, he would torture them to death. After Gong Jinglin returned, he heard about what happened at Tang Kor's chicken farm. This made him a little concerned. After all, the 2 dreams didn't mention anything about Tang Kor's chicken farm. He planned to find some time to investigate the situation at Tang Kor's chicken farm. The dreams weren't necessarily accurate. As long as it wasn't a threat, he wouldn't care. Fate was full of uncertainty. Any change could change a lot. Tanghua's life was more comfortable now. She would visit the chicken farm every few days. Finally, she realized her dream of a group of hens lining up to lay eggs for her. Shi Xingshan didn't quite understand. His boss had a strange hobby. She loved watching hens lay eggs. Every time she came, she would cook a few freshly laid eggs and eat them. She ate 3 in one sitting. Shang Yin wanted to eat 5 in one go. Shi Xingshan expressed that ever since he saw so many eggs every day, he would often cook some egg noodles when he was hungry. Now, he no longer wanted to eat eggs. On this day, Tanghua took Shang Yin to the chicken farm again. The group of people leisurely left the city. Shi Xingshan noticed that there was a carriage following them along the way. It was not a carriage that he recognized, so he told Tanghua about it. Boss, He must be a guest who came because of his reputation. The steward would go to the chicken farm every day. Although he bought a lot of servants back later, he would still go and keep an eye on them for half a day. When they arrived at the chicken farm, the carriage behind them followed them inside. Tanghua and Sheng-yin got off the carriage, and so did the other party. Both sides stared blankly at each other. It was Tanghua who spoke first. "Young master, you've come from afar. Are you here to buy chickens or eggs?" If he wanted to buy chickens, the orders for this season were already full. He would have to wait until next season. As for eggs, I do have them. Chapter 2889. Gong Jinglin remembered Tanghua. She was the little girl he had met on the way. At that time, the other party was dressed as a merchant. Now, the Tang family's chicken farm seemed to be her home, so Gong Jinglin did not find it strange. In any case, he did not sense any danger from this little girl, but he still thought that she was not an ordinary person. Since there are no chickens, let's buy some eggs. Since he was already here, he could not say that he was just here to take a look. This time, his gaze lingered on Sheng-yin for a while. The other party was looking at him with a vigilant expression. That pair of clear and serious eyes were somewhat eye-catching. One could immediately understand what he was thinking. When he saw that Tanghua was holding Sheng-yin's hand, Gong Jinglin understood. Just as he was about to say something, Sheng-yin suddenly said, "Wife, look at me." This time, Gong Jinglin almost could not hold it in. He knew that the other party's brain might not be very bright, but he did not expect the other party to say such a thing. Gong Jinglin was a little impressed. Although a person like him had many things to say to Tang Ying, in the end, he only said that he would definitely pick her up in the future. Was he not very good with words? He was worse than a silly young master. No wonder he and Tang Ying had not started dating when he already had a wife. "All right, it's up to you." Gong Jinglin's eyes were a little shocked. He actually saw a doting look in the little girl's eyes. Was it really different these days? Sheng-yin was satisfied. In his pair of clear eyes, there was only room for Tanghua. His brain was clearly not very bright, but sometimes he knew what to do. At this moment, Gong Jinglin carefully sized up Sheng-yin. His face was undoubtedly very good-looking. However, after looking at him for so long, he felt that he was a little familiar. He carefully recalled the members of the royal family. Although he had many brothers, there was definitely no such person. "I'm Lin Jing. How should I address you?" Gong Jinglin reacted and decided to ask about the other party's surname first. Tanghua is the boss of the Tang family's chicken farm. Gong Jinglin greeted her and then asked Sheng-yin, "Is this the lady's husband? I don't know how to address you." System, what a joke. His disguise had already been exposed, yet he was still probing. Sheng-yin, Tanghua wasn't lying. Judging from the male lead's words, Sheng-yin seemed a little familiar. If the other party could help her find Sheng-yin's family, that would be the best. Was his surname Sheng? When Gong Jinglin was invited in by Tanghua, he kept thinking about the big families with the surname Sheng in the capital. This was because Sheng-yin didn't look like someone from a small family. Since he felt that Sheng-yin looked familiar, he must be related to him or someone he knew. It was just that he didn't think about it for a moment, so he could only give up. In the end, Gong Jinglin carried 100 eggs back to the palace. With so many eggs, of course, he was going to give them away. She had heard that Tangcorp's chicken and eggs were all the rage in Beijing. Especially chickens, that was a rare thing. However, when Gong Jinglin went to see the emperor, he saw the emperor frowning and looking like he had a headache, so he asked, "It's your aunt's son, who is also your uncle, who is missing. Aunt only has one son, and now she is sending people everywhere to look for him. Your aunt was born with a brain that wasn't very bright. I heard that it was caused by your aunt mistakenly taking medicine back then. Third brother, since you're here, I'll leave this matter to you. You must find him." Chapter 2890. This great elder princess was the emperor's aunt. Speaking of which, she was even younger than he was. When the late emperor was still alive, he was very favored and had a good relationship with him. Fortunately, she helped him back then. Otherwise, he would not have been able to sit in this position. Great elder princess said that she had taken medicine by mistake, causing the child to have problems. In fact, He knew that it must be because the battle back then had angered someone, so they attacked her. Speaking of which, he had let his aunt down. One of the reasons why his aunt helped him was that she and his mother were good friends. Your aunt is so angry that she's sick. She has sent people to the palace several times to ask. Gong Jinglin was stunned. Aunt? Yes, her husband's surname was Sheng. It was just that he had been dead for many years, so he did not think of this for a while. Because his aunt and her husband were very loving, she had no intention of finding another husband after Prince Consort Sheng's death. It was also because her child was not smart and had always been eating and chanting Buddha in the princess's mansion. He had only heard of this aunt, but had never seen her at all. Naturally, he had never seen his uncle who was not smart either. Sheng Yin, whose surname was Sheng, was obviously well-raised. Could it be that he was the uncle he had never met? Third brother, why are you in a daze? I'm leaving this matter to you because I'm at ease with you. The emperor was right. He had so many sons, but in fact, he had long been biased toward third brother. Although his family background was a little poor, his own family background was not good either. Third brother had both ability and wisdom, and he was almost trained. As for the other few, they could be used as practice for third brother. If he found his cousin this time, it would be considered a meritorious service. Yes, father. After leaving most of the eggs to the emperor, Gong Jinglin went directly to Great Elder Princess's mansion to look for Great Elder Princess. Because Great Elder Princess did not go out and did not accept visiting invitations, he really had not seen him once. After asking about his uncle's appearance and various characteristics, Gong Jinglin finally confirmed that Sheng Yin should be his uncle. Seeing Great Elder Princess's pale face and almost unable to get out of bed, he said in a low voice, Aunt, if I'm not wrong, the person I met before should be my uncle. Great Elder Princess, who was originally listless, suddenly grabbed Gong Jinglin. Where is Yin? Take me there quickly. Your Highness, listen to me carefully. Gong Jinglin was not in a hurry and slowly told Great Elder Princess what he had encountered before. Seeing the surprised look on Great Elder Princess's face, he was also shocked. He was wondering why his father looked so familiar. It turned out that his father resembled his grandaunt a little, especially his eyebrows. His voice was his grandaunt's son, so naturally, they were similar. After hearing this, Great Elder Princess had recovered most of her spiritual strength, and there was a smile in her eyes. You mean, not only is my Yin not injured, but he also found a wife by himself? Gong Jinglin was a little speechless. Could he not focus on such a strange thing? At first, he thought that his great-aunt was a rigid person. He didn't expect her to be so interesting. If I didn't hear wrongly, that's what Uncle called the little girl back then. The little girl didn't refute and held his hand wherever they went. Uncle seemed to be very protective of her. He even looked at me with a guarded expression. It's good that you're on guard. After all, you're quite good-looking. My son is just afraid that you'll cheat his wife away. My son is actually not that stupid. Gong Jinglin. Chapter 2891. Gong Jinglin saw that Great Elder Princess was full of smiles, and the anxiety between her eyebrows disappeared. Instead, she was full of smiles, as if she was very satisfied with the result. She leaned against the head of the bed and gently pinched the Buddha beads in her hand. When Yin was born, I found that he was a little stupid, so I went to ask an eminent monk for help. The eminent monk calculated Yin's fate and said that Yin would face a disaster when he was 15 years old. If he couldn't get through it, he would die. If he could get through it, he would be rich and safe for the rest of his life. In order to help Yin get through this disaster, I didn't go out for more than 10 years and prayed for Yin all day long. Last year, Yin was 15 years old. I was afraid that something would happen to him, so I sent more people. I didn't expect that he would still go missing. I searched everywhere, but I couldn't find him. Great Elder Princess sighed. I was also sick and couldn't get out of bed. I didn't expect you to bring me such good news today. It seems that Yin will get through the only disaster in his life. Yes, Uncle will be blessed. Gong Jinglin didn't believe in fortune-telling in the past, but now he had to believe it. He had relied on the previous 2 dreams to avoid many dangers and know the details of the enemy. Although he knew that he would be the final winner, he still didn't dare to let his guard down at all. Every step he took was steady. This fate was not unchangeable. If he was careless and underestimated the enemy because he knew about the future, the result could also be changed. He would never be at ease until the final result was known. You said earlier that the little girl was the boss of the Tang chicken farm? Yes, in fact, this was the second time I met her. That time, she rushed to the capital from a certain direction. At that time, I also saw Uncle. However, I was in a hurry to do something at that time, so I didn't look carefully and didn't see what happened. When I passed by the chicken farm and heard about it, I wanted to bring some to my father and mother. In the end, I met them. Previously, I was thinking that Uncle looked a little familiar. Later, I went back to the palace to see my father and compared the things before and after. Then, I came to find you. In that case, it's really fate. Gong Jinglin felt that great elder princess's illness was almost cured. Her illness was a disease of the heart. Since she had found Uncle, she naturally had to be cured. Great aunt, do you need me to bring Uncle back? I think you really have bad intentions. My son finally found a wife, and you actually want to separate him from her. Jinglin, are you jealous of my son? He's older than you, but he actually managed to find such a good wife? Knowing that great elder princess was joking, Gong Jinglin just smiled and said, "It seems that you have your own plan. Then I won't interfere in this matter. Previously, Imperial Father ordered me to find Uncle, otherwise, he won't let me off. I have to go back and report this matter to Imperial Father. Go back and tell your father not to take it out on the child for everything. I think that you, Jinglin, are not bad. You're such an outstanding child, yet you won't let him off so easily. It's really outrageous. I'll enter the palace another day and have a good chat with him. I've really troubled him with the matter of finding Enrich. Thank you, Grandaunt, for speaking up for Jinglin." Gong Jinglin cupped his hands and left with a smile on his face. He didn't expect this legendary grandaunt to be so easy to talk to. She was whatever she was. No wonder she was so respected by his father. Translator, Hinyi Translations Editor, Hinyi Translations Translator, Hinyi Translations Editor, Hinyi Translations. Chapter 2892. Walking out of Great Elder Princess's mansion, Gong Jinglin recalled that his uncle had said to the boss of the Tang family, "Wife, look at me." His whole body was a little feverish. His uncle was a fool, but he was quite good in some aspects. At the same time, he also imagined that when he said that he and Tang Ying were alive, the more he thought about it, the hotter his face became. This caused the little eunuch beside him to be curious. Was his master very hot? Thinking about it, he hurriedly fanned Gong Jinglin with his hand. "What are you doing?" "Master, your face is red. Is it because of the heat?" "It must be because of the heat. Otherwise, how could his master's face be red?" "Go away. Let's go back to the palace." Gong Jinglin hurriedly threw out the messy thoughts in his mind. He was not like his uncle. He just thought that in the two dreams, although he and Tang Ying were loving and had a family, she accompanied him through ups and downs and survived one crisis after another. He was not good at expressing his feelings. The only thing he could do was to protect her in his arms and ensure that he was there whenever she needed him. His behavior in the dream was indeed very consistent with his personality. However, the way his uncle acted coquettishly to his wife had a different impact on him. It could be said that he even wanted to try getting along with Tang Ying like that in the future. He also wanted to see Tang Ying carefully protect him and dote on him. Bah! What the hell was he thinking? It was so embarrassing. This time, Gong Jinglin put away all his expressions and emptied his mind. Sitting in the carriage, he closed his eyes and did not think about what had happened before anymore. However, his mind was still filled with Tang Ying. Although they had not been separated for long, he somewhat missed those days in the cave. However, there were too many enemies around him now. He did not dare to put her in the open for fear that she would be hurt. He remembered that there would be a plague a few years later and knew about it. At that time, he had no choice but to bring Tang Ying over. He did not know where the source of the plague was, so he still had to bring Tang Ying back in a few years. In this case, he had to make preparations in advance. He also had to get someone to research some anti-plague drugs. Unfortunately, that thing was too terrifying. Even if there were anti-plague drugs, they might not be useful. Even if he said it now, no one would believe him. He could only send someone to keep an eye on it. It would be best if they could find out who had provoked them first and isolate them. Then, they could quickly evacuate the surrounding people. At the same time, Tanging knew that there was a plague in her dream. If she didn't know about this, it wouldn't have been a big deal. Now that she knew, many people would die here. She had received a modern education and was also a medical student. She could not sit back and do nothing. Her strength was meager, but even if it was meager, she still wanted to try. The plague was still a few years away, so she could prepare for it during this time. I need to research more about the plague. At the very least, I need to make some preparations. The Tang family members were still so nice to her, but she already had a grudge in her heart and could not accept their kindness without any barrier. They were reincarnated, so they would definitely know about the plague. When the time came, they would probably plan to move away from this place. This was because she had discovered that the family was preparing for this. Previously, when her eldest sister left, the family received 150 taels of silver, but they did not buy too many things. She also inadvertently heard her grandmother, Madame Wu, say not to buy too many things. When they moved, they would not be able to carry them. It would be a pity to throw them away. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation. He was extremely obedient. It was said that this little girl had even bought a big house in the capital. This reminded her of an illusion, a golden house to hide a mistress. Although she was hiding her silly son, she was very happy. Tangwa also realized that something was wrong after being stared at by the other party. In particular, the madam seemed to be more and more satisfied with her, which made her fall into deep thought. What kind of person would be satisfied with her? Madam, Tangwa called. Great Elder Princess came to her senses and said, "Then I'll place an order with you. 3,000 eggs." It was her daughter-in-law's chicken farm. As her mother-in-law, she had to support her daughter-in-law. Like to wear fast, female supporting lead, calm down please collect, wear fast, female supporting lead, calm down. Chapter 2894. It was said that her daughter-in-law bought this mountain at a high price. She would ask her daughter-in-law later if this mountain had been given away. If it hadn't been given away, she would ask the emperor to do her a favor and give this mountain directly to her daughter-in-law and give her a title. The emperor would not refuse such a small thing. She was not greedy for power. She only hoped that her silly son and daughter-in-law could live happily and peacefully after she passed away. Great Elder Princess wanted to order 3,000 eggs, which made Tangwa a little happy. She didn't seem to have any malice, so she just let her look at her. But when she was writing the order, she still wanted to inquire about this madam's background when she was free. The way she looked at her was really strange. Suddenly, she thought of Shang-yin. Did this madam have anything to do with Shang-yin? Tangwa narrowed her eyes and looked up, only to see Great Elder Princess looking at her kindly with love and affection in her eyes. Tangwa's hands couldn't help shaking. Was she really the little fool's family? After writing the order, Tangwa paused and asked, "Madam, do you know Shang-yin?" She didn't find out which family Shang-yin was from. She thought that Shang-yin's family should be good to him, so she still wanted to help him find his family. Great Elder Princess was stunned and then smiled. "It seems that I didn't disguise myself well enough, and you saw through me. Enrich is my child. He has been missing for a long time. I heard that someone met him here 2 days ago. I was sick before. I know that Enrich is fine here, so I plan to come here when I get better." Tangwa invited her in, and Great Elder Princess finally saw Shang-yin, who was eating snacks there. As soon as Shang-yin saw Tangwa, he quickly stood up to hold her little hand. But this time, he also noticed Great Elder Princess and stared at her for a long time. Great Elder Princess's face darkened. Did this boy forget his mother when he had a wife? Mother. Great Elder Princess laughed again when she heard Shang-yin calling her that she hadn't heard for a long time. "Enrich, where have you been?" Do you know how worried I was? She walked over and patted Shang Yin's head. Seeing that great elder princess was looking at Tanghua, he hurriedly pulled Tanghua behind him to protect her, which amused great elder princess. Iner, who is this? My wife. Shang Yin felt that great elder princess didn't seem to be angry, so he took Tanghua to his side, as if to tell her that he had found a wife, which amused great elder princess. Iner, let mother talk to your wife, okay? Shang Yin hesitated for a long time and looked at Tanghua eagerly. After Tanghua nodded her head, he finally agreed. Great elder princess was speechless. This silly son of hers, how afraid was he that she would bully his little wife? No wonder he got a wife after going out for a while. He was so good at coaxing. Who did he learn this from? Since Tanghua had seen through her, great elder princess didn't hide it. First, she asked what was going on between Tanghua and Shang Yin. If her son took it seriously, she would find a chance to take Tanghua away. If this girl was really willing to be with her silly son, she would certainly be happy. The little fool is good, Tanghua said. She found the little fool herself, and now she couldn't get rid of him. The reason why she didn't solve the problem of Shang Yin's brain was that she didn't know his background. Like to wear fast, female supporting lead, calm down please collect, wear fast, female supporting lead, calm down. Chapter 2895. Moreover, she thought it was okay for him to be silly and cute. Every day, he was as obedient as a little wife. System, bad taste. For Tanghua, it didn't matter whether Shang Yin, who was so likable, became smart or not. Anyway, that little fool only cared about her now. She could afford to raise him and take care of him. Now that guy's identity should be extraordinary, she didn't need to worry about anything. Great elder princess could tell that this girl really thought of her son, so she was very happy. She could tell that she really liked her silly son. God bless her. She must have prayed for blessings every day. While she was praying for blessings, such a good girl with poor eyesight came. After repeated confirmation, great elder princess was relieved when she learned that Tanghua was really willing to be with her silly son. It's my silly son's blessing to meet you. Then great elder princess revealed her identity. After that, she was very satisfied when she saw that Tanghua was indifferent, as if she didn't care much about it. She was so calm at this age. As long as she paved the way for her, she wouldn't be bullied even after she passed away. In the future, she could put in a good word for Jinglin and help him take care of him in the future. Tanghua didn't know that great elder princess had imagined so many years later. Then great elder princess came to business. Gwar, where did you meet Iner? Great elder princess got used to it quickly when she called her intimately. They were a family, so of course, she should call her intimately. In a ruined temple. I happened to see those people throwing the little fool into the ruined temple. Because I was willing, I took him and an old beggar who protected the little fool. That old beggar is now my butler, Shi Xingshan. Great elder princess wrote down Shi Xingshan's name, and her smile disappeared. Did you get anything out of him? No, he was hired to do this and didn't know the identity of the little fool. Okay, I'll investigate it. No matter who did it, I won't let him go. She didn't believe that it was an accident. It was just that she didn't have time to investigate the truth because she wanted to find Shang Yin. She was afraid that she would miss the opportunity to find Shang Yin if she was too busy investigating the truth. Now that Shang Yin was fine, whether it was a human or a ghost, she would find them one by one. Someone will definitely know about Immerse's return when the time comes. Tomorrow, I'll send some people here to disguise themselves as servants to protect you and Immerse. Tanghua didn't refuse. Since her little fool was the son of great elder princess, there were many things involved. The man sent him to be a beggar with a purpose. He was probably an enemy of great elder princess. The enemy was in the dark while they were in the light. It was better to have a few more people to protect them. After I deal with the person who hurt Immerse, I'll hold a big wedding for you. Does Gua still have anyone in her family? From Gong Jinglin, she knew that Tanghua was from another city. Such a capable girl, what kind of family did she come from? Unexpectedly, Tanghua only smiled and said, having someone in the family is better than having no one. I have nothing to do with them anymore. Great Elder Princess was stunned for a moment and then nodded with a smile. It doesn't matter. You can treat and me as your family. When the time comes, I'll definitely hold a lively wedding for you. As for other things, she didn't ask more. Like to wear it quickly. Supporting female lead, calm down, please collect it. Wear it quickly. Supporting female lead, calm down. Chapter 2896. This girl liked her son, and her silly son liked this girl. Moreover, according to her observation, this girl was very outstanding. She didn't know why her family gave up on her. After chatting with Tangua for the whole afternoon, Great Elder Princess went back with a basket of eggs. From tomorrow on, she would ask someone to make a bowl of egg soup every morning. The eggs laid by her daughter-in-law's chickens must be the best. From the next day, Great Elder Princess became busy. For more than 10 years, she stayed in the mansion, eating vegetarian food and reciting Buddhist scriptures. Now she went out of the mansion every day, either to the imperial palace or to hold some tea parties to invite the wives of the nobles. In just 10 days, Great Elder Princess's fame overshadowed all the women in the capital. She should be the only living Great Elder Princess. After all, she was the youngest sister of the late emperor. She was older than the current emperor, but her seniority was shockingly high. After inquiring about it, Great Elder Princess learned that the mountain tang were rented didn't belong to the royal family and still belonged to them. Therefore, she went to the emperor and told him about it. "Aunt, do you mean that you want those barren mountains?" The emperor nodded and said, "That's not a problem. The location of that place is actually good. The soil is not suitable for growing food, otherwise it would have been taken away long ago. In that case, it's good to give it to my daughter-in-law. Your cousin went out to find 2 smart and beautiful young wives. We can't treat them badly. Her chicken farm is good, and she makes us proud. What do you think, Your Majesty?" "Yes, I also like the chicken of the Tang family very much. How could the emperor not eat it?" A lot of people in the audience fawned on him. Now the boss of the Tang family's chicken farm had become his aunt's daughter-in-law, his cousin's daughter-in-law. They were on the same side. The emperor was wondering if she could use a mountain to raise chickens for the palace if he gave her the mountain when the time came. The taste was amazing. "Since you like it, give those barren mountains to Guo. She will definitely remember your kindness and give you some tributes, which are more precious than those in restaurants and your ministers' houses." Great Elder Princess covered her mouth and smiled. At that time, you can also give your tributes to her. No one can compare with her. The emperor was amused. After more than 10 years, his aunt finally became the naughty aunt she used to be. They had been playing together since they were children and were rarely tortured by his aunt. He could still guess what she was thinking, but he was very tempted by her proposal. Those people wanted to line up to buy chickens, but he had special tributes. Being an emperor was such a wonderful thing. "Okay, I'll give all the surrounding mountains. But you have to help me." "All right, we're all family, so there's no need to be so formal." The emperor laughed. He was also a family, which was why he did not directly give the order. Even with his concubines and son, he didn't dare to say that they were family. But with this aunt, they could be said to be a real family. Because without his aunt's help, he wouldn't be who he was today. "Your Majesty, since you've given her the mountain, you can think of another title. I heard that Guo was sued a few days ago, saying that she sold fake goods. If it weren't for that girl's cleverness, she wouldn't have been able to get away." Translator, Henyi Translations Editor, Henyi Translations Translator, Henyi Translations Editor, Henyi Translations 13. Chapter 2897. If she had a title and was protected by our royal family, those people would not dare to say anything bad about her, would they? The emperor shook his head and laughed. Sure enough, his aunt was still his aunt. Even if she had been in seclusion for more than 10 years, she still had the same character. It seemed that he would not feel bored in the following days. "Aunt, have you found out who took my cousin away?" "There are some clues." Great Elder Princess became more serious. "It should be those people. Except for them, I haven't offended anyone else." The emperor sighed. I got you into trouble. Don't say that. We grew up together. Your mother had been taking care of me in the palace. Helping you is helping myself, isn't it? If it weren't for you, how could I live so comfortably as great elder princess? The emperor didn't talk about this because they were a family and it would be too polite to talk about it. Who was the group of people who hurt great elder princess? It should be his most powerful opponent at that time. He couldn't kill all of them, and he couldn't kill all of them. It was impossible for him to find out who they were. They probably hurt Shang because they hated great elder princess for helping him. Great elder princess was the youngest sister of the late emperor and had a mother. She was very favored. With such a favored aunt who would speak up for him from time to time, imperial father would naturally look at him in a new light. At that time, there were many people who wanted to curry favor with great elder princess, but she didn't like them and only played with him. He came from a poor family. His mother was a palace maid, so his aunt never despised him. Those who wanted to curry favor with his aunt, including his sworn enemy, failed. Later, when he got the throne, the other party failed, so he must have hated his aunt. But his aunt was favored, and the late emperor gave her a lot of power. In short, it was enough to protect herself. It was really not easy to hurt her, but people always made mistakes. For example, great elder princess was poisoned when she was pregnant. The person who poisoned her was actually the sister of Prince Consort Shang. It was said that Miss Shang was his sworn enemy who had always loved him. For the sake of Prince Consort Shang's sister, she didn't kill her. Later, the child was born, and he was a fool. Prince Consort Shang felt guilty. He had always thought that he had let great elder princess down. If he hadn't been careless, he wouldn't have let anyone hurt her. So he died of worry. Auntie, this time, no matter who it is, don't be soft-hearted. Execute them secretly. If we keep it, it will be a disaster sooner or later. Who knows what will happen next time? I think so too. They didn't kill Enrich and only sent him to a dilapidated temple to be a beggar. They probably did it for the sake of humiliating me. Who knows, in the future, he might even give me a follow-up report to piss me off. Fortunately, Enrich was lucky and encountered Guo, avoiding this calamity. This time, I won't let them off. No one else will have a chance. Great elder princess came to see Tanghua again and brought her a big surprise. A title deed. Great elder princess stuffed the land deed to her and then pulled her out. She pointed at the visible mountains and said, Guo, the surrounding mountains are all yours from now on. You can raise a lot of chickens. Don't refuse. The emperor gave it to you for a purpose. He asked you to keep a mountain and raise some chickens for the imperial palace. It was the first time that Tanghua had heard such a reason. Seeing that great elder princess was sincere, she didn't refuse. The emperor has been saying that the chickens you raise here are very delicious. After a while, he will inscribe a few words for you. Chapter 2898. Carve the words on the stone tablet and put it at the foot of the mountain. At that time, no one will dare to bully you and cheat others in the name of the Tang's chicken farm. Tanghua was a little happy about the title deed, but it was not because of the title deed. It was the feeling that great elder princess gave her that made her a little happy. After traveling through many worlds, few elders in the worldlets would dote on her like this. Maybe 1 out of 10 worlds would appear, or maybe none at all. Thank you, great elder princess. Don't mention it. We're a family. I have to let you get married as soon as possible. At that time, Guo won't be so distant to me. The more they got to know each other, the more great elder princess liked this little girl. If it weren't for her silly son who liked this girl, she really hoped that this girl was her daughter. Now it was okay. She could treat her daughter-in-law as her daughter. Wife. Shang seemed a little dissatisfied. Great elder princess had been occupying Tanghua. Every time great elder princess came, he would be driven aside. Now great elder princess came out with Tanghua and said a lot of things. He didn't understand, but he seemed to know that it would be better for him to do this. Therefore, he couldn't help but come out to make trouble. He didn't let the two of them chat outside all the time and left him aside. Great elder princess felt that her silly son was really possessive. Couldn't his mother say a few words to her daughter-in-law? It was impossible to hide the fact that the emperor gave the positions of several mountains to Tanghua. It didn't take long for those who were well informed to know that the little fool beside Tanghua was Great Elder Princess's son. When they thought about it this way, they understood everything. Those who had been thinking about how to deal with the Tang's chicken farm were so shocked that they broke out in a cold sweat. Fortunately, the news came in time, so they didn't do such a stupid thing. Otherwise, they would lose their heads. When Tanghua began to expand the chicken farm, she also liked to raise other poultry, such as rabbits, ducks, and pigs. She specially used a mountain to raise pigs, and all the pigs she raised were the kind that could run very fast. The taste of the meat would definitely be superb. Anyway, she didn't plan to open a shop. Other than choosing a few good recipes to give to the emperor, she gave the rest to the restaurants, saying that it was to promote cooperation between the two sides. The owner of the restaurant didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Indeed, he had to work with her again. Now that the Tang family's poultry was praised by the emperor, it was on a whole new level. More and more people came to eat it, so how could they miss it? Although their territory had expanded, the supply of goods from the Tang family's farm still could not meet the demand. There were also others who imitated the Tang family's farm. Tanghua didn't care. There were people imitating. It was a trend. She wouldn't expand the farms anymore. It would be a good thing if there were such farms all over the world. On the other hand, her Tang core farm would always be the best of the best. It was also a tribute to the royal family. No other farm could replace it. Great Elder Princess even praised her after knowing it. The emperor was very satisfied with this. In fact, he had already known that there were many farms imitating the Tang family's farm in other counties far away from the capital city. Tanghua didn't care about it, which was good for the whole country. It could improve the living standards of the whole country. The rich could spend money to eat meat, and the poor could find a place to work to make a living. Chapter 2899. After a month, Great Elder Princess didn't show up. A month and a half later, Great Elder Princess came to her again and said that she had killed all the people who hurt Shengyin. In the future, they would not be in any danger. This time, she came with many people and many betrothal gifts. She specially came to propose marriage. In short, the necessary procedures couldn't be omitted. At that time, Shengyin held Tanghua's little hand with bright eyes, as if he was telling her to agree to marry him. Tanghua and Shengyin's wedding was very grand, and it was not an exaggeration to say that there were 10 miles of red dresses. On the day of the wedding, the emperor also gave her a title of county princess and specially allowed her not to kneel to anyone. After all, in terms of status, she was his cousin and his aunt's daughter-in-law. Moreover, she chose his cousin. He thought this special permission was very good. Anyway, Tanghua didn't often enter the palace. This special honor was just to tell many people that she was very noble. Tanghua wouldn't be a threat to anyone in the royal family, so everyone was happy to see her. After the wedding, there was no difference. The little fool was still the little fool. The only difference was that the little fool could hold Tanghua's waist to sleep at night and looked very happy. System. Sure enough, the little fool is so happy to hold her waist. Unknowingly, it was almost the year when the plague broke out. Tanghua found out that Gong Jinglin hadn't made much progress. He didn't have a cure for the plague at all. Even if he could prevent it, it was still difficult. Butler, send someone to do something. Send a trustworthy person. Tanghua took out a bottle of medicine. Send him to the family Tang village. We'll see what happens then. Tanghua's order was that if the plague still broke out, this person should take her medicine to save those people. If someone solved it, such as Tang Ying, there was no need. She guessed that Tang Ying could only take precautions. Recently, she had been paying attention to Gong Jinglin's situation. One day, she found that he left the capital in a hurry with his men, so she went to find Great Elder Princess and asked about it. Great Elder Princess looked serious and said in a low voice, "Yes, the plague was found in a place and Jinglin took the initiative to solve it." She was a little worried. This winter hasn't passed yet. I don't know what the situation is like over there. I hope it can be resolved soon. If the plague wasn't controlled, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that an entire city would die. Knowing that things were almost the same as before, Tangwa returned to the house and continued her life. Occasionally, he would come to Great Elder Princess and cook hot pot with her. It was a hot day, so she ate hot pot to warm herself up. "Mother, what do you think about raising some lambs?" Great Elder Princess swallowed the food in her mouth and asked curiously, "Why do you suddenly want to raise lambs? Isn't the mountain over there fully stocked?" Sheng also looked at Tangwa seriously. What he said was different from what Great Elder Princess said. He said directly, "Mother, if you like, raise some lambs." Great Elder Princess almost spat out the food. She said with a smile, "Enrich is right. If Gwar likes it, then raise some lambs. But why do you suddenly want to raise lambs?" Tangwa looked at the hot pot in front of her. Although it was comfortable to eat and tasted good, she always felt that something was missing. What was it missing? The bad thing was that the meat was not right and the soup was not right. She didn't feel good eating it. "Mother, have you eaten mutton soup? Raise some lambs. It's warm to eat mutton soup in winter." Great Elder Princess. Chapter 2900. Tangwa had already decided to raise lambs. Moreover, raising some lambs would not take up much space. Lambs only needed grass and water. They were very easy to raise and rarely fell sick. Everything had been arranged in Family Tang Village. Tangwa was no longer worried. She was thinking about how many lambs she should raise. A few months later, Gong Jinglin returned. Not only did he return, but he also brought Tang Ying and family's family back with him. Actually, he did not want to bring the family's family with him. However, the situation this time was special, and he had no choice but to bring them along. For some reason, the matter of the plague was resolved without any mishaps. However, the family's family insisted on following him. They said that Tang Ying was their treasure, and they were worried about her. Yes, in the second dream, the family said the same thing. In the second dream, he also believed that the family's family really treated Tang Ying as their treasure. However, through the combination of the two dreams, he knew that those people were reborn. He would not believe their excuses. However, Tang Ying did not know that in order to take her away, he had to take this family with him. It did not matter. Weren't they just a few reborn people who wanted to take advantage of her? He was really not afraid of this. When he was free, he would find a way to deal with them. If he did not treat them well, it would cause Tang Ying to hold a grudge against him. It was better to go along with them on the surface and secretly deal with them. After all, they were not sincere to Tang Ying. He would let Tang Ying slowly understand the evil intentions of this family. Tangwa was not surprised at all to learn that the family's family had returned to the capital. The people sent by Shi Xingshan had also returned. Because of the medicine she gave, no one died of the plague. However, the famine there was still a little serious. However, it was much less serious than in the plot. The number of people who starved to death was not high. It was still within an acceptable range. Because the family's family had followed them, Gong Jinglin arranged for them to stay in a courtyard. For the time being, he did not bring Tang Ying to his residence. Tang Ying was still young and would not be so fast. Although his residence was not that dangerous, he could not do whatever he wanted. The Tang family members looked at the ordinary house. It was not big, and the location was not particularly good. In fact, they were a little disappointed. Furthermore, Gong Jinglin did not hire anyone to serve them. He only settled them down here and did not do anything else. Why is it different from what I imagined? That young master doesn't look like he's short of money? I thought that we could at least be placed in a large residence with a dozen or so servant girls to serve us. Madame Wu said. Tang Fengxiu didn't say anything. He just sat by the door and tapped his pipe. Madame Zhang said, "This place is not bad. If it wasn't for the fact that Xing is old and can't wait any longer, I would have really wanted to keep her here and bring her to the capital. Perhaps she would be able to meet a good family." Speaking of this, Madame Zhang's smile disappeared. "I don't know what happened, but Xing is becoming more and more immature. Actually, it's good to marry her off. She won't suffer in the house of a minister-counselor. Look at her. Ever since she married into the minister-counselor's house, she hasn't come back even once. It's obvious that she has long been unfilial. Fortunately, she didn't stay here until now, Tang Baowen said. He was becoming more and more dissatisfied with his 3 children. If Tang Pingshun was not his only son, he really did not want to bring him over. Their family could only rely on Tang Ying, this promising girl. The next day, the family went to the city to see the world. They even heard about the story of the Tang family's farm. After hearing about it, they were all dumbfounded. Madame Li said sourly, "They're both from the Tang family. The difference between them is really big." Coincidentally, Tang Wu's carriage happened to pass by. This familiar voice made her lift the curtain by the carriage window. As expected, she saw Madame Li's malnourished face. Chapter 2901. The horse carriage slowly passed by the family Tang people. Madame Li did not notice that the curtain of the carriage window had been lifted. When the Tangwa lowered the curtain, she raised her head and saw the horse carriage slowly driving out of the city. Madame Li clicked her tongue and said, "Whose horse carriage is this? It looks so stylish. The color of the curtain is nice and it looks like it's made of silk, right? There are even beautiful embroidery on it. The people in the capital are really different. They can even make horse carriages with so many tricks." The wood used to make the horse carriage is not ordinary wood. The carvings on it must have been made by a master carpenter, Tang Baolin added. Tang Baolin added. He usually worked as a carpenter in the village, so he was quite familiar with wood. As for Madame Li, although she could not afford to wear silk, she had seen silk embroidered handkerchiefs before. There were also people in the village who raised silkworms. Even the cloth they made was not as good as the ones in the capital. You don't know who that horse carriage belongs to? There was a person selling trinkets next to them. Madame Li's voice was not soft, so he heard it clearly. Especially when he saw the family Tang people, they seemed to be from outside the capital. He reminded them, "The person in that horse carriage is not simple. The next time you see him, make way for him." "Who exactly is he?" Tang Baolin asked in a low voice. "He sounds like he's not simple." The trinket seller shook his head with a smile and lowered his voice. "Weren't you talking about Tang Kor just now? That's Tang Kor's horse carriage?" Madame Li was surprised. Then, she realized, no wonder. It's so stylish. Before Madame Li could finish, the man interrupted her and continued, "It's not just that. You are all from outside the capital, right?" "That's right. Brother, tell us, what do you mean by outside the capital?" Tang Baolin was also very curious. Could it be that Tang Kor had another identity? When they heard about how Tang Kor made a fortune, they were envious. In their previous life, they had lived in the small family Tang village until their deaths and had never seen the big scene outside the capital. He heard that the Tang Kor was also an outsider. In just a few short years, they had already grown to this extent. The poultry and livestock that they raised were not something that ordinary people could eat. At that time, they were thinking, weren't they all the same? How could Tang Kor's products be so much more expensive? She wondered if the people in Beijing had too much money and nowhere to spend it. "Looks like you guys are really new here. Otherwise, you wouldn't ask these questions that everyone already knows." After that person's explanation, the Tang family finally understood how amazing the Tang group was. She knew that the boss of the Tang family farm was a woman in her teens. She had established the Tang family all by herself. Not only that, she had also been given the title of County Princess by the Emperor. Besides, she was also the princess consort of Commandery Prince Romping, the only son of Great Elder Princess. After the family Tang group members heard this, they were all dumbfounded. Was this really something a teenage girl could do? The family was especially jealous. They were reincarnated people. Why didn't they think of setting up a farm? Otherwise, all this glory might have been theirs. But soon, they stopped being upset. Didn't they have Tang Ying in their family? Chapter 2902. Their Ying was a truly blessed girl. It was indeed good to rely on Ying. As a matter of fact, they had already moved to the capital. Although there were many places that did not meet their expectations, at least they did not stay in a small place like Family Tang Village. That noble young master's identity was definitely not simple. Perhaps he was much nobler than that Duke Romping. They did not care. Tang Ying did not go out with the family Tang village. In her dream, she was already very familiar with the capital. There were all kinds of people here. She knew that Gong Jinglin still had many enemies. If others knew about their relationship, not only would it bring trouble to Gong Jinglin, but it would also bring danger to her family Tang village. Therefore, she obediently stayed in the house and avoided the trouble in the second dream. Thinking of the trouble that the family Tang village might cause in the future, Tang Ying sighed in her heart. It seemed that she had to find time to warn them. They had been reborn. They should have been reborn from the first life and did not know about the second life. If they went out and caused trouble, it would probably cause trouble for him again. What Tang Ying did not know was that Gong Jinglin had also had those two dreams. He knew about the family Tang village's character. When they came to the capital, he sent people to keep an eye on them. If they caused trouble and suffered more, he wouldn't be able to save them in time. When Tang Ying came to look for him, he was helping them with a troubled expression. In any case, they were shameless and only knew how to bully Tang Ying. He did not care much about their feelings. Although it was a little unkind, he knew Tang Ying's character very well. Only when the family Tang village made mistakes again and again and hurt the people she cared about would she slowly understand. In the future, they would get married and have children. He definitely could not hurt their children, so he could only make a small sacrifice on the surface. However, Tang Ying did not expect that the family Tang village would cause trouble on the first day they went out. Any random person in the capital might not be a simple person. The person who caused trouble was Madame Li. Just because the family Tang village was shopping, they went to a place that sold jewelry. Madame Wu actually had some money, so she could buy some small jewelry. But Madame Wu couldn't bear to part with the jewelry. Madame Li looked at it again and again. In the end, she had no choice but to give up. She could only look enviously at the madams and young misses. They all took out several pieces without even blinking their eyes. The trouble she caused was that she saw an ordinary-looking madam buy a very beautiful piece of jewelry and praise that piece of jewelry. It just so happened that she had also taken a fancy to that piece of jewelry, but she definitely couldn't afford it. Therefore, she was jealous and unknowingly muttered, "It's so ugly. It won't look good on anything. It's so expensive. Isn't this a waste of money?" Although his voice was soft, it was still heard by others. Although that unprepossessing madam was not good-looking, her status was not low. She did not directly do anything to Mrs. Li. It was just that when the Tang family members left the store, they were stopped by the store's staff. They said that she had stolen something and wanted to report it to the authorities. The person who saw her stealing with her own eyes was the madam whom she had said was ugly. In the end, they found a bracelet on her body. It just so happened that Madame Li wanted to buy it. With their current situation, they could definitely afford it. Madame Li immediately jumped up and said, "I didn't steal anything. I don't know how this bracelet ended up in my arms. How could I steal something from your store?" Chapter 2903. Earlier, I saw you staring at this bracelet for a long time, the ugly madam said meaningfully, but you don't seem to be able to afford it. Since you can't afford it, it's normal for you to have evil thoughts. You said you didn't steal it, but why is the bracelet on your body? Just now, my maid said that you've been wandering around there. You're probably stealing something, right? The witnesses and evidence are all here. I think it's best to send you to the authorities. The family Tang people could not explain themselves clearly. They actually did not know if Madame Li had stolen anything. After all, Madame Li usually liked to take advantage of others. Even Madame Wu was a little hesitant. Madame Li almost went crazy when she saw everyone's doubtful look. Just like that, Madame Li was sent to the authorities by the shop owner, who directly sued her. When Tang Ying found out, she was in a bad mood. It was only the first day. Many things were clearly different, but the family Tang people's ability to cause trouble had not changed at all. She thought of how Madame Li had always been good to her in the past few years. No matter what, she was still the mother of this body and had never mistreated her. She had to go over to take a look and help think of a way. Gong Jinglin immediately found out that Madame Li had been arrested by the authorities. Then, he immediately entered the palace and planned to wait for Madame Li to be punished before leaving. Although it was a little unkind, He was especially unhappy that they had schemed against Tang Ying. Didn't the family Tang people like the capital? He would let them know what the capital was. For Tang Ying's sake, he would let them live. As for the rest, they could dream on. When she found out that the family Tang people had entered the capital, Tang Hua also asked Shi Xingshan to send people to keep an eye on them. If there was any movement, he would come back and tell her. When she heard that Madame Li had suffered a lawsuit on the first day, she almost choked. Then, she laughed very happily. She knew that this family was very good at courting death. Their hearts were higher than the sky, but their lives were thinner than paper. They were clearly lazy, but they dreamed of making a fortune and hoped that the pie would fall into their bowl. My wife is beautiful. Sheng Yin sat beside Tang Hua and ate a boiled egg. This was their habit. Every time they came to the farm, they would cook a few fresh eggs to eat. After eating, the two of them would hold hands and watch the hens line up to lay eggs. Shi Xingshan could not understand Tang Hua's strange hobby. Of all the things the boss could watch, he just had to watch hens lay eggs. System, what do you know? If it wasn't for the fact that the host wanted to see hens lining up to lay eggs for her, would there be such a glorious farm today? Everyone in Beijing should thank him. His host wanted to eat eggs. If she didn't want to eat it, there wouldn't be a farm. Also, if she hadn't wanted to drink mutton soup in winter, she wouldn't have raised lambs. If it weren't for the fact that her little fool especially liked to eat spicy rabbit meat and beef jerky, would she have raised yellow cattle and those cute little bunnies? The reason why the farm was so big was because she and her little fool wanted to eat it, so they raised it while they were at it. They even raised it for the royal family. Wasn't that infuriating? Boss, that's what happened. Shi Xingshan couldn't help but sigh. So many years had passed. The Tang family should have treated their boss better back then. Was there a need for them to only come to Beijing now? Unfortunately, they missed it. Their boss's personality was that once they missed it, there was no turning back. Is there no way for her to clear her name in this lawsuit? Chapter 2904. No one can testify for her. After all, the stolen goods were found from her clothes. Shi Xingshan said, unless someone helped her. Fortunately, she didn't take the goods away. I guess she will be beaten 20 times and locked up for a while. That's not light. It's enough for her to suffer. Seeing that Tang Hua was not moved, Shi Xingshan understood that his boss didn't care about their life and death. Well, it was they who indifferently wanted to sell their boss. 150 taels of silver had already cut off all the friendship and blood relations between them. Little fool, are you full? If you are, let's go to see the hens lay eggs. Tang Hua rubbed Sheng Yin's head and pinched his face. Sheng Yin nodded obediently, which made Shi Xingshan speechless. Although the commandery prince was a fool, he was really a little shameless. No wonder. No wonder he could deceive such a good woman as his boss at such a young age. He had secretly heard that great elder princess often wondered if his boss was blind to fall in love with the commandery prince. After so many years of getting along with each other, he actually understood that his boss was not blind. It was because the commandery prince only had eyes for his boss. His happiness, anger, sorrow, and joy were all with her. At that time, his boss was busy pushing the things in their farm and went out before dawn. It was very cold in winter. The commandery prince was not a normal person, but he knew that he had to get up early to see her off. In the evening, he would wait for her at the door. He remembered that summer night. In order to wait for his boss to come back, he stood alone outside the yard. His hand was bitten countless times by mosquitoes, but he didn't say that he wanted to go in. Those servants treated him badly, but he didn't know how to complain. But as long as his boss was involved, he seemed to know what to do. Tang Hua took Sheng Yin to walk around the mountains. It seemed that they went to all the places in their farm. It seemed that the hens were lining up to lay eggs, the ducks were swimming in the lake, and the lambs were running in the mountains and bleating at them. He also saw those yellow bulls, each of them banging their horns against the trees. There were also some yellow bulls lying on the ground, leisurely scratching their backs with iron claws. They were so comfortable that they were about to fall asleep. Shi Xingshan wanted to say that it was not that tiring to be a cow. At least, the cattle in the Dong family's farm only needed to eat some grass every day, run around, and have someone to scrub their backs when they were bathing. Their days were very comfortable. The life of a bull was better than that of many people. The farmers at the foot of the mountain were now working in Tangwa's farm. As for the crops in the fields, they were planted every year during the season and were occasionally taken care of. In every household, both men and women could work in the fields. Ever since they started working in the farms, their lives had been getting better and better. Especially during festivals, Tangwa would order them to share the meat. Especially during the new year, the rewards were even more plentiful. It could be said that the people at the foot of the mountain were very grateful to Tangwa. When the sun was about to set, Tangwa took Shengyin back to the city. As soon as they returned to the house, Shi Xingshan came again with the news from the family. As he expected, Madame Li was beaten 20 times and then locked in prison. It was said that she would be locked up for 3 months. It could have been reduced, but Madame Wu was unwilling to pay. This disaster was caused by Madame Li. If they wanted to reduce the prison time, they would have to pay at least 100 taels of silver. They didn't agree to such a high price. Even if Tang Ying had saved some money, it was not easy to save 100 taels of silver in that small place. Like wearing clothes fast. Female supporting character, calm down please bookmark. Female supporting character, calm down please bookmark. There was no need to rely on Gong Jinglin for everything. If she could solve the problems of the Tang family, she would solve them. That young master must have taken a fancy to our Ying. He should be busy recently. Ying, why don't you go look for him? Tang Fengxiu said. They had been too anxious to react. Now that they had reacted, if that young master could solve the problem, how could they not use him? They doted on Tang Ying because they knew that this girl was filial and did not forget her roots. What did the family Tang people need? Would she definitely help? Tang Ying was in a difficult position. She could not take it anymore. Her family pulled her along and finally, she went to look for Gong Jinglin. Oh, it's Miss Tang. Young master has something important to do. The servant looked at Tang Ying and was very respectful. Miss Tang, please go in and sit and wait. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Chapter 2906. The people in Gong Jinglin's house were instructed to take good care of Tang Ying. After inviting her in, they waited for her to eat and drink. Gong Jinglin knew that she did not eat much and could not bear it. However, the family was like that, so he could only endure it. He knew the cause and effect of Madame Li's matter. He planned to let the madam whom Madame Li had offended torment her for 2 days before saving Madame Li. Therefore, Tang Ying went for 3 days in a row. Gong Jinglin was in the palace and did not go to that house. Tang Ying knew Gong Jinglin's identity. He must have something important to do and could not leave, so she did not complain. However, the family asked her every day, and she answered truthfully. Seeing their disappointed faces, she did not say much. Although the family did not complain in front of her, she would occasionally overhear some words. They were clearly good to her for a reason, but this serious kindness made her really helpless. Her intuition told her that it was best not to trouble Gong Jinglin with such matters, lest the family developed a habit. Tang Ying regretted what had happened in the past 2 days. Perhaps she really should not have come to the capital. However, when she saw Gong Jinglin, she could not forget. On the 4th day, Gong Jinglin appeared. Tang Ying rushed to the residence to see Gong Jinglin. She felt very guilty when she saw the exhausted Gong Jinglin. In the end, Gong Jinglin rescued Madame Li. However, Madame Li suffered a lot inside. After all, she had offended someone she should not have offended. I've caused you trouble. Tang Ying felt a little guilty. Gong Jinglin looked at Tang Ying's thinner appearance and felt a little uncomfortable. Tang Ying could not be ruthless, so he could only be ruthless. Otherwise, she would still have to deal with a lot of trouble for this family in the future. He wanted her to lose all hope in this family and never interfere in their affairs again. Look, she had only been in the capital for less than 10 days, and she had already been tormented to such a state. No, your business is my business. Helping you is what I want to do. For some reason, Gong Jinglin suddenly thought of his uncle. His uncle was clearly a fool, but with just a few words, he was able to coax his aunt into a smile. Unknowingly, he blurted out these words. Then, he saw that Tang Ying was stunned for a moment before a smile appeared on her face. She even looked a little shy. His heart suddenly started to race. Although his uncle was a little silly, he was better at coaxing people. Are you free tomorrow? Since you've been in the capital for so many days, let me show you around. There are many beautiful places in the capital. Gong Jinglin still remembered Tang's farm. I know a good place. The scenery there is very unique, and the people are very nice. Even the small animals there are different from those outside. Tang Ying's eyes lit up. Where is it? You'll know when you get there. Ordinary people aren't qualified to eat there. I guarantee that once you go there, you will remember it and never forget it. Gong Jinglin was also stunned when he saw the livestock living such a good life for the first time. Especially the scene of those people scrubbing the back of the old yellow cow. He still remembered it vividly. He wanted to bring Tang Ying to that place. It should make her happier. Tang Ying's curiosity was piqued, and she agreed. Gong Jinglin's words just now made her face burn a little. This person was a little different from the one in her dream. He was especially good at talking, making her a little embarrassed. She thought of the blockhead in her dream. Other than protecting her in his arms, he did not know how to say such sweet words. Gong Jinglin kept looking at Tang Ying and blurted out, Ying, you're very beautiful. Tang Ying's face turned even redder, and she could not help but push him. That night, Tangwa received a message from Gong Jinglin saying that he would bring people to her farm to play the next day. He wanted to ask her to prepare some food for him. Fast crossover, supporting female lead, calm down fast crossover, supporting female lead, calm down reading address, 103791 fast crossover, supporting female lead, calm down download address, fast crossover, supporting female lead, calm down, 103791 to make it easier for you to read it next time. You can click on the collection record below. You will see it the next time you open the bookshelf. Like fast crossover, supporting female lead, calm down. Please recommend this book to your friends, blogs, WeChat, etc. Thank you for your support. Chapter 2907. Is this the legendary Tang family's farm? Tang Ying was actually very surprised that a Tang family's farm had appeared in the capital, because in her two dreams, the Tang family's farm had not appeared. She had not deliberately inquired about the Tang family's farm, but living in the capital, as long as she went out, she would definitely hear many people talking about the legend of the Tang family's farm. It was said that the Tang family's farm had originated a few years ago. In other words, Tang Ying was already surprised that it had developed to its current scale, had been personally inscribed by the emperor, and that its boss was the Junwang consort. She even suspected that this Junwang consort, who had caused such a big commotion, might be a super powerful transmigrator. Although there were other farms in this era, the appearance of the Tang family's farm was really too bizarre. Tang Ying suspected that she had transmigrated into a movie and that the other party was the female lead in the movie and was doing well. Moreover, it was said that the Junwang consort was not very smart. Wasn't this the transmigrated female lead who had transmigrated and happened to marry a foolish prince and still lived a good life every day? Perhaps that foolish Junwang consort was just pretending. He pretended to be a little fool during the day and transformed into a big bad wolf at night. Thinking of this, Tang Ying quickly dispelled the messy thoughts in her mind. What the hell was she thinking? If she was with Gong Jinglin, he would be her elder. Yesterday, I already sent someone to greet Aunt. She will get someone to prepare a chicken banquet to entertain us today. Gong Jinglin did not expect that the woman he had met back then would actually become his aunt. This matter of fate was really hard to explain. For example, wasn't it like this between him and Tang Ying? Hearing that she was being entertained like this, Tang Ying was a little flattered. She knew that it was a luxury for the people in the capital to eat a bite of the Tang family's chicken. Today, she was actually able to eat the chicken banquet personally entertained by the Tang family's boss. She was still looking forward to it. Aunt's chicken soup is especially delicious. Gong Jinglin remembered that he had come over to freeload a few times before. Aunt knows how to make many delicious chicken soups. There's nothing she can't make. She also knows how to make many chicken dishes. Although many restaurants also have these dishes, I've tasted them all. Aunt's cooking is delicious. Tang Ying was still a little stunned when Gong Jinglin said so much at once. This block of would actually knew how to praise people. Tang Ying could not help but blush when she recalled how he had said that she was pretty. Speaking of which, although she was about to become a master's student in modern times, she was still single from her mother's womb. She had never thought of such a thing. Who would have thought that after having two dreams, he would experience two lifetimes with the same person? In both lifetimes, they had been very loving and had never doubted each other. Even if they had encountered many dangers, they had walked hand in hand to the end. In her dream, the only thing she regretted most was that Gong Jinglin was too tired. In the beginning, he had to deal with his enemies and protect her. He had to shoulder everything by himself. Later on, he was busy worrying about the affairs of the world. His body slowly collapsed, and he passed away many years earlier than her. However, Gong Jinglin's life had been glorious. At least before he died, the world he ruled would not have so many people starving to death. Like to wear fast. Supporting female lead, calm down, please collect. Wear fast. Supporting female lead, calm down. Fight bar updates the fastest. Chapter 2908. He reduced taxes, changed various systems, and a series of policies that were beneficial to the people and punished corrupt officials who took advantage of the people. Although there were no fish in clear water, with Gong Jinglin's deterrence, at least the people could survive when the disaster relief food was sent down. In short, he had already done well enough to reach the peak of this era. He was just too tired. This made Tang Ying think of what would happen in the future, and her heart ached a little. She still had a big family behind her to drag him down, causing him to often have to deal with many old foxes in order to help the family Tang people solve their problems. In the second dream, it was because she did not know that the family Tang people had been reborn. She only thought that they doted on her purely because they liked her. Therefore, every time they asked for help, she would do her best to help. Speaking of which, in the second dream, she owed Gong Jinglin. Now, she already knew that the family Tang people's love for her was utilitarian. So she drew a line in her heart. Once the family Tang people crossed her line and wanted to harm Gong Jinglin, she might not be able to make things difficult for him. Ying, what are you thinking about? We're here. The carriage had already stopped. Gong Jinglin's words brought Tang Ying back to her senses. She saw Gong Jinglin lift the curtain of the carriage, jump down, and then turn around to help her. She gently put her hand over. With a slight tug from him, she landed steadily on the ground. Soon, he let go of her hand, making her feel a little lost. How could she keep her heart when Gong Jinglin was like this? Seeing Gong Jinglin looking at her with a smile, she could not help but lower her head. Let's go. Aunt must be anxious from waiting. Okay. Tang Ying walked behind, but she was thinking in her heart. If Gong Jinglin still sat in that position in the future, what could she do to help him? In the dream, she seemed to be afraid that her identity as a transmigrator would be exposed. Other than revealing her medical skills, she hid everything about her identity as a transmigrator very well. She did not want to be like this anymore. She believed in those two dreams and believed that this person called Gong Jinglin in front of her treated her sincerely. He was also the only person in this era who treated her so well. Isn't it very different here? Gong Jinglin actually felt that Tang Ying was distracted. He thought that Tang Ying was thinking about the Li family. He could go along with her and help her with many things, but he could not do that to the Tang family. This family clearly wanted to suck her blood. She couldn't bear it, but he couldn't. In this life, he didn't want things to be like in his dream. He didn't want to die at the age of 60, leaving her to live alone in the harem. He didn't know how long she had lived in the dream. According to her body's condition at that time, it should have been very long, right? The two of them walked into the Tang family's farm with their own thoughts. Because Tangwa brought Shengyin here, Great Elder Princess thought that the previous place was not good, so she asked people to build a villa here. Occasionally, She would come over to sit, drink some soup, and eat some meat. Then, she would walk around the mountain and look at the flourishing Tang family's farm. After these days, Great Elder Princess's health had improved a lot. Occasionally, the emperor would sneak out and walk around here, saying that this place was good. Of course, Gong Jinglin was the one who accompanied the emperor every time. He just wanted to come over and freeload. When it came to chicken soup and chicken, his aunt's cooking was the best. His uncle was so good that he could coax a good woman like his aunt. Calm down, please collect. Wear fast. Female supporting character, calm down. Chapter 2909. Gong Jinglin was not envious. He had also found the person he liked and was very satisfied. Tanghua had already heard the commotion. The chicken banquet was already prepared and was still warm. At present, she and Shang Yin were sitting in the courtyard of the villa, basking in the sun. When the sound of footsteps gradually sounded, Shang Yin reacted faster than her. His eyes vigilantly stared outside, but he didn't forget to hold Tanghua tightly. This was because every time someone came over, his wife would push his hand away and talk to those people, especially his mother. She would even take his wife away. He could not snatch her back even if he wanted to. She would even make trouble for him. Shang Yin's reaction made Tanghua extremely happy. She pinched his face. Mother won't come over today. She won't come over for a while. The wariness in Shang Yin's eyes lessened, but he still stared at the door. When he saw Gong Jinglin, he only glanced at him before lowering his head and continuing to hold Tanghua's hand. He did not even look at Gong Jinglin. The person who came was Gong Jinglin. To Shang Yin, he was not a threat at all, so he did not care. Gong Jinglin said that indifferent gaze did hurt his heart a little. At the very least, he had helped his uncle and aunt with their wedding. How could his uncle not remember him? Uncle, aunt. Gong Jinglin greeted and stepped aside. He brought Tang Ying in and spoke to Tanghua. Unknowingly, his face turned slightly red. Auntie, this is Ying Ying. From his appearance, who wouldn't know that she was someone he cared about? Tanghua stood up with Shang Yin and walked towards the two of them. When Tang Ying subconsciously looked at Tanghua and wanted to address her as Princess Consort of Romping, she was stunned and could not call her that anymore. Gong Jinglin instantly noticed her standing there in a daze. He glanced at Tanghua and then turned back to look at Tang Ying. He was a little confused. Ying Ying, have you seen Aunt? Tang Ying did not seem to hear Gong Jinglin's words. She was still in a daze. Tanghua had already walked up to her and said with a smile, Ying Ying, long time no see. The familiar voice that she had not heard for a long time finally brought Tang Ying back to her senses. When she saw Tanghua and Shang Yin beside Tanghua, her eyes turned red. Big sister. Gong Jinglin was confused. Tang Ying looked at Shang Yin. How could she not remember him? This was the little fool who wanted to buy her elder sister back then. So the little fool was Commandery Prince Romping? Her elder sister was the boss of the Tang family's farm? That woman who had created a miracle in the capital in just a few years? Tang Ying didn't know what to say. After calling out, she didn't know what to say. Big sister seemed to be living a good life. At least she didn't have to worry about this. Moreover, he was living a much better life than she had imagined. Look at that little fool royal prince. He had always stood by eldest sister's side in a protective state. He was a little silly, but he was really good at heart. At least, even if he wasn't smart, he knew how to protect big sister. Compared to some people who were normal in the head but only knew how to hurt big sister, it was much better. Yes, she was still resentful. Big sister, is it really you? Tang Ying couldn't help but take a step forward. Her eyes were red. They hadn't known each other for long. She didn't feel much affection for her elder sister. She was just a little touched. She was touched that the other party was actually fine and was still living a good life. She was simply a winner in life. Another thing was that she still blamed herself. She felt that if it weren't for her, big sister might not have met with such a tragic fate. However, the other party didn't seem to care about this. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Chapter 29:10. The food is ready. Tangwa smiled and nodded at Tang Ying. Come in and eat while we talk. After saying that, she handed Tang Ying a handkerchief. After Tang Ying took it, she wiped it carelessly and hurriedly nodded. Gong Jinglin seemed to be living in a dream. He knew that there might be something wrong with Tangwa. After all, in those two dreams, his uncle was not found, and there was no person called Tangwa, not to mention the so-called farm. In addition, it was mentioned in the dream that Great Elder Princess suddenly passed away a few years later. It was the same in both dreams. He remembered that not long after Great Elder Princess passed away, his father even investigated a group of corrupt officials. After connecting the dots, Gong Jinglin understood that his grandaunt's death might have something to do with his uncle's whereabouts. His father investigated the corrupt officials because he needed an excuse to kill those who were involved in his grandaunt's death. Therefore, based on everything that happened before, he had long deduced that there was something wrong with his aunt. However, this problem was not a problem for him. Because of his aunt's appearance, his uncle was found. His grandaunt was alive and well, and a Tang family farm even appeared, which attracted the attention of everyone in the world. The farm needed manpower, so it indirectly supported many people. His aunt was also one of them. In the end, it was a good thing. However, he really did not expect that his aunt was Tang Ying's elder sister. Gong Jinglin was really a little confused. In the future, when he and Ying got married, how should they address each other? He felt that he could address her as he did during formal occasions. When he came to see his aunt alone, he could address her as she did. It was not bad. Perhaps it was because they had experienced two dreams that they felt like an old couple. He did not think that this was a problem. Tangwa did not know that Gong Jinglin had imagined so many things just because of the way she addressed him. Elder sister, I'm very happy that you're fine. Shang Yin stared at Tang Ying, then looked at Tangwa with pleading eyes. Tangwa pulled Shang Yin and said to Tang Ying, This is your brother-in-law. Hello, brother-in-law. Tang Ying greeted him quickly. Now, the more she looked at Shang Yin, the more she liked him. He was clearly not smart, but in his previous position, he was really protecting her elder sister. Shang Yin might have understood a little, so he no longer looked at Tang Ying with vigilance. While they were chatting and eating, he took the opportunity to rummage through his pocket. There were all kinds of expensive trinkets in it. He looked at this and then at that. In the end, he grabbed Tangwa's hand and handed the pocket to her. My wife, pick them for me. Tang Ying's eyes were filled with surprise. Although her brother-in-law's brain wasn't that bright, he wasn't that stupid. Tangwa's eyes were full of smiles. She touched his head and said, Okay, these things are very expensive. Are you willing? Pick. Shang Yin said nonchalantly and pushed the bag in front of her. Pick. Although Gong Jinglin was used to it, he still thought that he was better than his uncle. It was clearly just the word pick, yet he could say it in such an imposing manner. If uncle was smart, what would he be like? In the end, Tangwa chose a safety buckle and handed it to Tang Ying. Tang Ying wanted to decline, but Tangwa said, Your brother-in-law gave you a greeting gift. Tang Ying took it and saw Shang Yin sitting upright as if he was very proud. Actually, she did not think that Shang Yin was so stupid that he could not be saved. He would even give her a greeting gift, which meant that he was not hopeless. Like to wear fast. Female supporting lead. Calm down, please collect. Wear fast. Female supporting lead. Calm down. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.